I want to say not only are you great on the field, you're great in the classroom. Combined GPA of 2.5. We've got half a dozen members here with grade point averages of 3.0 and higher. And I'm just so proud of you because you are scholar athletes, and we're going to be looking for you to provide leadership in this community. Once you graduate, go to college and come right back here to Rochester. Right. Yeah. And also, before I turn it over to Principal Joe Muno, I also want to give a special thanks to Jason Muhammad, your dynamic coach, Mr. Muhammad, and Mike Nally, your athletic director. There are some staff here, some volunteers who supported the team. And I just want to thank you because all of that matters. All the help that we can provide our young people on the field and in the classroom and outside of the classroom is greatly appreciated. I know we have a special volunteer, Ms. Tina Bradley, so thank you for being part of that team. Tina. So you make us proud. I'm going to turn it over to your principal, Mr. Joe Muno.
I want to thank Dr. Rivera and the board for having us here tonight. I do want to say the entire Marshall community is very proud of the accomplishments this fall of our football players and our cheerleaders. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Rivera said. We started the season with everyone in this room, and all of you remained academically eligible the entire season. We lost not one player. So I'm very proud of that. Thank you very much. I'd like to now bring up Mr. Mike Nally, our athletic director, and Coach Mohammed.
At this time, I think we're just going to introduce our players, have them all come up. Very special group of young men. I guess we can have them stand up here. I'd like to thank the board most definitely for having us here today and acknowledging us. Really appreciate that. And our young men definitely appreciate the support that we had from home. So we'll just go right down the row if we could. We'll introduce them, of course, by numbers. Number 44 is Michael Hawkins, senior. He's wearing 22, but he's actually number 5. He's wearing 22 for another player who couldn't be here, but that's Daryl Thompson. Number 4, Terrell Cunningham. And then if I could just pause from the lineup, I want to also have number 3, Jeremiah Crumity, come up. These were our 4 senior elected captains, the best group of captains we've ever had since I've been at Marshall. Since 1996, this is the best senior leadership that we've ever had. And as a result, yes. And as a result of that, we did have a great team, and they really did a great job of policing themselves. And we had positive peer pressure, and that was a wonderful thing. Continue, we have number 20, Terrell Wyatt. Number 55, Trindale Brock. Number 56, Tim McCown. Number 50, Pat Brown. Number 65, Markeith Logan, affectionately known as Twinkie. Number 72, Chris Turner. Number 92, modeling the John Marshall High School varsity jacket, will be Ryan Stewart. Number 70, Jeff Amon. Number 8, Shamel Turnbour. Number 80, Clyde the Glide Lawrence. Number 32, Rashad McCray. Number 2, who just got done dropping 24 points on Freddie Thomas, Isaiah Jones. Number 52/90, Quentin Jones. Number 25, Deuce Bruce. And number 1, Eddie Jackson. Also, I'd like to recognize Coach Art Oakes, who came over from Charlotte. And of course, our coach, Coach John DeFazio. All right, very proud of what these young men accomplished. Also, if you read your Democrat and Chronicle newspaper on Sunday, you'll find that 4 of our young men made first team All-Greater Rochester. So you can read about that. That was Isaiah Jones, Eddie Jackson, Jeremiah Crumity, and Monster Mike Hawkins. And also, we found out tonight that Quentin Jones and Daryl Thompson made second team All-Greater Rochester.
And Coach Mohammed was Coach of the Year.
So that's it. Thank you very much.
We have a proclamation. I'm going to ask if you want to stay up here for a minute. Commissioner Shirley Thompson, if you could come down, please.
That's okay. I don't know if I have enough room up here, but let me say, woo, Marshall! Now you know why I didn't make the cheerleading squad in high school.
I know.
You know, someone said, as your names were being called this evening, one of my colleagues, Commissioner Powell, commented that you're not big fellas. Some of you have, a little more stature than the others, but you're not big fellas, and that says something about the heart that you had to have had throughout this season to go as far as you did. And so, on behalf of the board, I just hope you know how proud we are of all of you, that you excelled on the field and in the classroom. It's wonderful. As much as I would like to present this tribute to you, I'm going to ask my colleague, Jeff Henley, to step to the podium. This is his last official board meeting, and he has not had the opportunity to make such a presentation. So on my behalf and on behalf of the board, Commissioner Henley.
I think you guys are pretty big fellas myself. Okay. Tribute to the John Marshall High School varsity football team. Rochester Board of Education meeting December 21st, 2006. Whereas the Board of Education supports high achievement among its students, both academically and athletically. And whereas the varsity football team at John Marshall High School and the varsity football cheerleading squad have demonstrated excellence and competitive performance at the local, regional, and state levels. And whereas for the 2006-2007 season, the team was named Section 5 champions, regional champion and semifinalist in the New York State Championship. And whereas team members also have earned numerous outstanding player awards for the Class AA, including Most Valuable Player Mike Hawkins, Outstanding Offensive Lineman Jeffrey Amon, Outstanding Defensive Back Isaiah Jones, School MVP Jeremiah Crumity, Western Region offensive and defensive MVPs Eddie Jackson and Jeffrey Iman. And Central Western MVPs Jeremiah Cremedy and Terrell Cunningham. Therefore be it resolved that the Rochester Board of Education hereby congratulates the John Marshall High School varsity football team and cheerleading squad for an outstanding 2006-2007 season and for representing the Rochester City School District with pride, spirit, and excellence. Signed, Domingo Garcia, President, Board of Education, and Dr. Manuel J. Rivera, Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate this. Any final word? Nope. I think we're all set. Yep.
Oh, let me unplug it.
Congratulations.
This is well overdue. Okay.
Oh, thank you. They dumped him at the table so he could get this.
And the student leader? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Give Cynthia an opportunity to sit down. Are we ready? The Board of Education meeting is hereby convened. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mr. Evans, our student representative. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have all received the minutes of October 19, 2006. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
President Garcia, I have a question about the minutes, if I may. Under the report that was given, the fact that you gave Commissioner Garcia on behalf of the Quality Assurance Committee, it only noted that,
I'm sorry. I gave a report on behalf of the Quality Assurance Committee.
someone was out, I'm trying to just get my bearings here, if I could, please. In any way, on the minutes, on the minutes, it indicates only that there was a report that was given.
There was a written report submitted on
Is it-
behalf of the Quality Assurance Committee that was taken in,
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yes.
Is it possible that we get, that in the minutes is reported the content of what President Garcia reported on? Is that possible, as opposed to just saying a written report was submitted?
it has always been our process to accept written reports and allow the board chair to provide a brief summary of the committee's report. But the report that is submitted in writing is the official report, and that was accepted by the board, and that was received by the board.
I don't have a problem with that,
From
President
Commissioner
Garcia.
Thompson.
That's not what I understand that. The content of it is what I would like to know, if we can have that content delineated in the minutes, is what my question is.
That's
Because
not,
it only says that there is a report. It doesn't say what the report was.
that's not normal practice. I'm not inclined to agree to that.
Point of clarification. Are you-
point of clarification has precedence.
Commissioner Elliott, you're saying if a written report is submitted, rather than just having that noted in the minutes, you would like to have any written report delineated somewhat in
That's correct. That's correct. In this report, in the minutes, it only indicates that there is a report, that there was a report that was submitted. And since this is a public document, I would like that there to be some content in terms of what that report indicated.
I'm not inclined to agree. So let's move on and take a vote on the minutes. All those in favor of the minutes that sent, please say
But can
aye.
point of information, am I able to make a motion on that?
Or you can move it if
Yeah,
you
let me
wish.
move that we have the contents, a summary of the contents of that written report included in the minutes.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Under discussion, Commissioner Evans.
Yeah, I mean, I see no problem with that if the report is included with the minutes that we get from the board. But I would also point out that all the minutes from all the committee meetings, I believe, are on the website. So I would add that, so that gives the public also an ample opportunity to be able to read every single item that happened in the committee, including who moved what items and what discussion items were on the agenda that would be advanced to the full board.
Mr. President, to be clear, we're looking at including the report, not the QA minutes, into these minutes. Am I correct?
Well,
That's correct, that's correct, yes.
The report that is given at the board, the oral report that is given at the board, is a summary of a written report that is submitted by the committee to the board.
Okay.
And you reported, you gave a summary of what was in the...
No, I did not. I simply stated that we had received a written report from Commissioner Thompson for the Quality Assurance Committee.
You didn't read the contents of that?
No, I did not.
Can we check the records on the report? You did not read it? Okay. I guess my concern is that we do, maybe in that case, then it's fine. But I was under the impression, I thought that you had actually talked about what was in...
No, I did
the
not.
report.
That would
Okay.
make the
Then
minutes...
my mistake. I
would make
withdraw
the-
the motion.
Okay. Washington, do you accept the withdrawal?
I accept.
All of those in favor of approving the minutes as sent, please say aye.
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 Commissioner Evans.
Aye.
I'm sorry, still Representative Evans. I just gave you the title of Commissioner. The ayes have it. Let's move on then to the second item on the agenda, which is speakers addressing an agenda item. We have a list of speakers. The first speaker is James Greco.
I don't. I knew that one was, but I didn't.
Good evening.
Mr. Greco, you have 3 minutes. All that we ask is that you conclude at the end of the 3 minutes, please.
I always have.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak tonight on the change in the eligibility policy, which I've been advocating for. I would just like to make a couple things clear. For the past 13 years, my children have been in the district, and I have been very active in the district. And the whole purpose behind that was always, what else can I do to make things better for children? There's never really been any other motive behind the things that I've done. And one thing I want to say about this policy is that it never has been about athletics. I'd just like to clear that up. What it's about is, how do we keep kids in school? Not on the playing field. And that's always been the motivation. I know there's been a number of things written, people have been talking. I just felt the need to come down and to, hopefully clarify that. There really has never been any other purpose. When we see a child with 3 or 4 or 5 Fs and he attends every practice, we say, well, maybe we can use that. We can use that motivation. And let's see if we can do that to help them stay in school, or her stay in school, and help them graduate, and have the kind of life that we really want them to have. And that's really what's behind the changes in these policies. When we see children who can't make a first period class because they're taking their child to daycare, then we got to say, well, maybe we can do something about that. I mean, that's what the Children's Zone is all about. Not all kids can do the same thing, accomplish the same things the same way, regardless of what's going on in their life. And the real goal is to say, you know, we're looking at something, maybe we can change it to make it better to help these kids. We're not trying to lower standards for them. You know, we certainly don't want to set up a situation where we're asking them how many halves in a football game so they can pass a course. This isn't about Division I sports. This is really about motivating kids to stay in school. It's about increasing retention. It's about increasing our graduation rates. And I just felt the need to come down here and just explain that. You know, what my motivation was to really to change the policy as it does exist now, which I think is rather strict and almost strictly punitive. And I think research has shown that that's not really what works for our children. And for the children that we've seen who have the situations that they do have, but do show motivation in other areas, we need to tap into that. And that's what this is really about, using the motivation they already have to keep them in school. And unfortunately, many kids do drop out once they become ineligible. And we have to show kids that if they try and they're improving, that we're going to support that. It can't be that they have we've had children who had a 1.61 grade point average, improved it to 2.54, but were still ineligible because they had that one F from one marking period to the next. Not that they don't need to improve upon that, but if they have to improve, we have to show them that we're behind them. And I think that's how we should do everything that we do. That's how we should focus everything. What else can we do? How else can we make this better for them? How can we change it? Just not to change it, but to make it better and to give these children the help that they do need. I applaud the children from Marshall, I really do, and all the athletes that I've seen, because I do help with athletic programs as well. But there are some kids that need our help, and that's what we need to be doing. I just wanted to clarify that, and I hope that you take all of this into consideration and we come up with something that's really much more beneficial for our children and for the district. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. The next speaker is William Fossett.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Let me first say that I'm here representing myself. No one else knows what I plan to say, although I imagine that at least one person in the room is a bit anxious, knowing how stubborn I can be. But despite more than 10 years of involvement in local government, tonight's the first time I've been compelled to speak on proposed legislation. I'm doing so because, however well-intentioned, I believe that this legislation will have disastrous consequences. I'm going to leave out the practical difficulties associated with enforcing and ensuring the fairness of a policy where eligibility is governed by a subjective term like making adequate progress, and instead concentrate on the negative impact this will have on the students and their self-esteem. I remember seeing a counselor at my high school react in shock when I told him that the Harvard recruiter who had come to the school had asked to see me. He quickly recovered, however, and as he pointed me to the room where the recruiter had set up, said, "Yeah, Harvard's always looking for black kids who can read and write." Now, at 15, that statement made me angry, and I decided that I was going to go to a prestigious school and, figuratively speaking, cram those words down that counselor's throat. But I was only able to get angry because 4 years earlier, after getting a 72 on my first test of the 7th grade, my father made it clear to me, as only a father like mine could, that 72 was unacceptable. And after the post-traumatic stress of that incident wore off, I decided that if I wanted to see the 8th grade, I had better find a way to do better. And that was key because I thought I had studied for that test. And when I got that 72, I remember thinking, maybe this is the best I can do. However, fear is a great motivator, and it made me reach down and perform at a level that I did not know I could. Now, not everyone has parents to show them what's possible. Sometimes it's a teacher or coach. Sometimes it's a pastor or family friend. And sometimes they show themselves out of a burning desire to be able to compete in the sport that they love. I've followed high school athletics very closely over the last 3 years, and I know of no other school or district in the state with a policy that's as soft as what's being proposed. Tonight, you honored a team that I saw play 4 times this year. They made all of us proud and earned the respect of people across New York. They not only performed on the field, but did what they needed to do in the classroom to make their special season possible. In the process, like me many years ago, I imagine some of them discovered academic talents they didn't know they had. Don't take this opportunity away from the Marshall students of the future. Don't give credence to the stereotypes that you know run rampant about this district and its student athletes. Don't reinforce the negative beliefs some of our student athletes have about their abilities. In closing, it was Benjamin E. Mays who said, "Not failure, but low aim is a crime." Let us implement as many policies as possible to help the small number of students in danger of being ruled ineligible by the current policy, but let us never, ever legislate low aim. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That concludes the list of speakers, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Rivera.
Tonight, for my report, I am going to transmit to you our strategic plan. I believe you have a copy of a PowerPoint in front of you. I'm going to step down to the podium, and I don't know if there's any way we can adjust that screen.
I don't think it's necessary. We have the report.
Oh, that's
We
right.
have the documents. You don't need to do it.
Okay. All right, we got the viewers out there have to see it too.
We got a copy.
First, I'd like to thank Jana not only for the leadership that she provided in overseeing this effort. It really has been an effort that has been ongoing for more than 6 months now. We had, when I came to this district, a strategic plan. In fact, the board adopted it in September of '02. Excuse me, a little bit later in '02. And that overall framework that we had served as a basis for the development of our annual goals. Over the last 6 to 7 months, we took it upon ourselves to come at this, to update our strategic plan, and really to capture some of the new directions and some of the new goals and initiatives that the board has been expressing, as well as that we've been experiencing with trying to build on our progress. And so there has been a team, a strategic planning team that has been in place. There have been numerous forums that have involved parents, faculty, and others. And tonight, I'm going to transmit this to the board. I do know that the board will have time, perhaps at least a month, possibly more than that, and that we had had some conversations about a joint Intergovernmental Relations Committee meeting as well as a QA committee meeting where you could host a forum to get further input to this plan. It is clearly our desire not only to transmit to you our best thinking, but this is a plan that hopefully will be owned by this Board of Education and serve as the backdrop for priority setting for the development of the budget process and hopefully even inform the selection process for your new superintendent. So with that, I'm going to walk through this framework. I want you to know that behind some of the major priorities that I will talk about, there actually has been a great deal of staff work around some very specific objectives. You're also going to see where we're going to introduce some highlights of measures, because in any plan, you not only want to have your mission, your vision, your goals, but we want to then capture very precisely what are some of the annual objectives. If you go to page 3, we have a values policy at the district. I'll be very frank with you, and I'll tell you that there are 24 or 25 different values. I think that's something we might want to take a look at, because in some respects, zeroing in on those core values that we as a district want to have guide our work together, I believe is important. But these are the values that people have shared in this process that have evolved. Being accountable for student achievement, accountable for our behaviors, being student-centered, being standards-based, having high standards, not only for student performance, but for the performance of our schools and the performance of professionals in the organization. Being respectful, being responsible, respecting diversity across the district, the values of cooperation and collaboration, and the fact that we are continuous learners. These are core values that have emerged over the last 6 to 8 months that have applied to our work and the development of these objectives. Our mission, that the district and all of its partners ensure student learning, growth, and development to prepare our graduates for success in college, training, employment, civic involvement, and citizenship. In other words, not just graduating for graduation's sake. People can do different things to get kids to meet that graduation standard, but to meet the standard so that you truly are prepared to be successful in college and in the world of work and as a citizen in our community. Our vision, that the city school district is home to exemplary and culturally responsive schools, students, educators, and services. All students graduate to become lifelong learners, productive members of the workforce, and responsible citizens. Go to the next slide, please. This slide here on page 7 of your PowerPoint, this is the framework that we have developed here. We want to see 100% of that is our goal. Now, that means we have to establish reasonable targets along the way, but ultimately, we want all of our children to be successful. We want all of our children to graduate and be able to go on to college or university or enter the world of work. And there are 5 key levers. This is our theory of action. And I'm going to talk about each one of these levers. Let me first, before you change, good first teaching, that when a youngster is in our schools, when a student is in our schools, that there's a quality instructional program, that what happens every minute that he or she is involved in that school, that they're getting an outstanding curriculum, that they're getting outstanding teaching from the highest qualified teachers. A second key lever, accountability for each and every child. That is the future of accountability. When we as a system embrace every child coming into our system and don't let anyone fall behind in a true sense of the word, that is a critical lever. So what are the actions behind that? Third, we must engage parents at a much higher level and community and families in support of student learning. All of this must be undergirded by knowledgeable and committed educators and staff, people who are not just trained and prepared, who go to the right in-services, who have the right degrees, but who are truly committed to our young people, who believe in our young people, who have high expectations for the performance of our young people. That word committed, there's a lot behind it. And that we have the systems and operations that empower schools. That's a major transformational lever for our district. What does that mean when we talk about empowering schools and students? That's going to call for change within this system. Next one, please. Just talking about teaching effectively from the start of every child's educational experience. Let me move to some of the measures associated with that. That's page 9. When we talk about that framework, good first teaching, some of the major strategies that we have is, one, to establish a pre-K through 12 standards-based core curricula framework that is rigorous, relevant, and culturally responsive. Now you might say, don't we have a standards-based core curriculum? Well, we have standards, performance standards for students, and yes, there are standards for a number of curriculum areas, but it is not system-wide known or understood by teachers. There's some inconsistencies from one school to the next. We have, as a district, has to embrace that as a major strategy so that everybody is clear about our pre-K through 12 standards of our curriculum. And we have to address the issue of assuring that it's rigorous, that it is relevant, it is engaging for students, and that it's culturally responsive. This is a major priority out of our diversity initiative. It's a major priority for us going forward. 2, that we are very clear about student learning outcomes at key grade junctures. What should a young person know and be able to do at the end of grade 2, 4, 6, 9, and 12 that are going to lead to college readiness? Let's be clear about what those outcomes. If you're a parent and you want to go and you want to sit with a teacher and understand, well, what is it that my son, Jose, or Johnny needs to know at the end of this grade to be ready for grade 3? That we have gone through that exercise, that teachers know and can articulate that very clearly. Adopt and demonstrate best instructional practices for core content. That's a key strategy for us. That there are aligned pre-K formative assessments in literacy and math. What does formative assessments mean? Well, we administer our state assessments annually. What's really creating a difference in accountability for each and every student is when there are benchmark assessments, classroom-based assessments, interim assessments that can track how young people are doing. And I can tell you that as the state accountability system goes through a major reformation, it will address this issue. This will be included in that directive. That we establish learning conditions that are based on the consistent delivery of student-centered behavior, academic and environmental expectations and norms. You got to have an environment where there's respect, where young people feel safe, where that's conducive for teaching and learning, and that's a key strategy. Those are the fundamental strategies for good first teaching. How do we measure that? What are some of the measures that we've talked about? Well, 1, tracking the increase, this is page 10, tracking the increase in the number of students at the end of every grade level who are reading at grade level. We do not want to send more students to 7th grade 1 and 2 and 3 years behind in reading. And that means we have to track their progress from an early age right on up. We've got to look at the percent and number of students who demonstrate positive achievement growth. In other words, if you're a level 1 student, we want more students moving out of that category of level 1, level 2 to meeting standards, level 3 and level 4. We want to see not only a reduction ultimately in the gap between the performance of white children and African American and Latino children, we want to eliminate that gap. 5th, we want to see an increase in the number and percentage of students engaged in college prep and/or college courses. And last, an increase in college performance. Last year, I was looking at data. Over 80% of students in the city school district projected that they were going to go to college or a university. When I asked the question, what's the actual number? Where are we actually with that? Well, we don't track that. We don't have that data. We need to upgrade our data systems as well to be able to track these kinds of performances. Next lever, accountability for each and every child. Let's go to the strategies. We need to design and build a model that holistically assesses each student's needs and learning strengths and results in a timely prescribed intervention and acceleration strategies. You've heard me talk about not losing children at the end of grade 1 and grade 2. Well, there are approaches and there are intervention strategies that we can build so that that doesn't happen, that more holistically look at students, not only their academic performance, but engage the parent, look at their neurological functioning, their executive, there are other types of skills that young people can have. And then you create a student learning plan that's based on how young people learn. There are approaches that have worked. And we need to build a model here that will be a model for the state. And I see our AIS transitioning into becoming that type of model. That we deliver high-quality intervention and alternative programs and services that support these outcomes that are cultural sensitivity and success in the school environment. Next one, please. What kinds of measures would we look at? An increase in the percent and number of students graduating. 52% graduation rate is not acceptable. We've got to increase the number of students graduating. We've got to track every single one of our students at the high school level when they enter 7th grade and when they work their way through the system. And we ought to be able to know real time where we are in every single one of our high schools. We want to decrease the number of dropouts. We are still averaging more than 800 dropouts every year. We want to decrease the number of dropouts out of our system. We want to increase the number of students who are on grade level. We want to increase more time spent on instruction. There are too many suspensions. Attendance at the secondary level is roughly 83% on average. Think about the time lost from instruction. We've got to have strategies that get at issues of reducing suspensions, keeping kids in school, and improving attendance. That's what that measure will force us to track. Increase in the number and percent of students participating in accredited programs. We want to see more children ready at the age of 3 and 4. I looked at the data that Andy McGowan prepared for children graduating from our pre-K program. And guess what? The gap begins at age 4 in terms of performance. We've got to have more students in the program and look at providing additional services to these young people at a very early age. A decrease in the number and percent of students classified as special education. Well, if we can intervene early with grade 1 and grade 2 and have a more holistic approach to how we diagnose young people, we will reduce the likelihood that young people need to be referred for special ed. Too many young people at an early age, not necessarily needing to be referred, are getting referred and classified. Next one. The third category is engagement of community and families in support of student learning. Some of the, page 15 of your document. We want to support the continued development of the Rochester Children's Zone. I think there's a great deal that we're going to learn in terms of community support for student learning and parent engagement for student learning, even looking at how parents can work with their children from the time they're born up until the time they go to school. Second, I think we need to zero in on the kinds of support to expand parent engagement and partnerships at the high school level. That's where there's a huge drop-off. A number of our young people, grades 7, 8, and 9, that's a critical grade configuration area for our young people. We need support, and in some cases, alternative structures for our young people. Third, we can't do it alone. You've heard me say this. We have to continue to build and expand partnerships with parents, with colleges and universities, with employers, with agencies that support student learning and student success in school. And there are a number of specific objectives that we will share with you in greater detail, that we have a draft that will feed into our discussion over the next month and a half, where you can see some of what we've targeted for specific strategies. The measures: increasing the number of students who have an advocate or mentor, increasing the number of volunteers, increasing the number and percent of parents and students in schools that have higher levels of satisfaction with the families. And there are other measures. These are highlights of some measures. One of the benefits of engaging the board and even more folks from the community through the forum that you want to conduct is this will be a greater opportunity for us to then refine and hone this framework and then create the objectives that you as a board own. Knowledgeable and committed educators and staff, some of the major strategies. Page 18. We want to refine, expand, and monitor our school-based professional development model, delivering coaching for teaching, focusing on literacy, math, and the best practices that we know work in schools. It is not rocket science. There are good fundamental practices. 2, that we develop a cadre of diverse and highly qualified educational leaders. 3, that we create a comprehensive district-wide leadership development program, and some of that planning is taking place right now. And then 4, that we recruit, develop, and promote a highly qualified, diverse workforce capable of addressing the needs of a diverse student body. And you will see in the detail the objectives that we've laid out for that and the kinds of measures that we would attach for that. Next one, please. We want to, as measures, these are some of the ones we've identified to date. An increase in the number and percent of people of color hired and represented in the district's workforce. An increase in the percent and number of teachers who are highly qualified. We are we are in the state of New York, and there are federal guidelines and federal standards and New York State standards for certification. We are obligated to fulfill that. Increase in the number of minutes per week devoted to collaborative planning, and increase in the number and types of demonstration classrooms in our schools. Finally, systems and operations that empower schools and students. We want to build a portfolio, a coherent portfolio of high schools that are better suited to prepare students for graduation and that meet varied students' needs and interests. So you're going to see objectives like the early college high school programs, hopefully opening 3 in September. You're also going to hopefully see in the budget process where I'll be recommending up to 2 or 3 alternative programs for our young people who are overaged and undercredited, so we don't lose them to dropping out to the street. Providing school and academy designs at the Foundation Academy, grades 7 through 9. More time for English language arts and math. There are models where you can lower the teacher load, so you don't have one teacher for 150 students, but you organize it in a way where you have one teacher for 75 students, and class sizes, and more time for teacher collaboration. And third, that we promote a culture focused on service to schools. This is organizationally how we here service schools, students, and parents and partners in an environment of respect and responsiveness to one's culture. There are other strategies. Revising the existing accountability system, we have talked about that. Measurement of individual school and district progress and meeting school, district, and student standards. This is important. The No Child Left Behind is going to go through a reauthorization process this spring at the federal level. There will be changes. With a Democratic Senate and a Democratic Congress, there will be changes to the NCLB legislation. The state, I predict, will also go through a transformation in terms of its accountability system. And we here in Rochester knew this months ago, and we have an opportunity to develop one that works and, of course, is going to ultimately have to comply with the state and federal requirements. But we've got to look at an accountability system that really drives improvements in the classroom. That's the difference. Not just one that's a demoralizing, punitive accountability system where we get data 8 months, 10 months late, and then we identify schools and we put them up no matter what good work has been done, and this is wrong. The current accountability system is wrong, and we need to make changes to it. Implement proven evaluation and planning functions. Here at the district, we really truly have to revisit the role and function of research, evaluation, and testing, and provide greater enhancement and support to that unit so we can do the kinds of analyses that will help us improve the system. And we have to have a resource allocation system where our resources are linked to solid planning, to school design, to student needs and performance of schools. Other strategies, as a district, there are strategies that we have embarked on, implementing and upgrading our financial and internal control processes and technologies. That is a given. That has been a priority of this board. Implementing a district-wide and school-level information management and technology improvements to maximize teaching and learning. Huge efforts underway. You're familiar with them. A lot of those different presentations have been made to the Finance Committee prior to your approval. That we advance and implement plans to maintain and modernize district facilities. And I'm hopeful that the legislature will approve our legislation this spring and enable that to be kicked off in a huge way. Deliver on an annual basis, of course, which is what I will bring to you in the third week of March, a balanced budget. The desire on my part is that we have a strategic plan. That strategic plan sets the priorities. That gives me the marching orders from you in terms of the development of the budget, and then I come to you in the third week with a proposed budget of which you will then have 45 to 60 days in terms of decision-making around those resources. Those are the key deliverables that I talked to you about more than a month ago. A strategic planning framework. The Rochester Children's Zone Plan will come to fruition on February 28th. We want to establish our priorities. We want to have a budget that's linked to that. And that will drive, I hope, the future of this system and take Rochester to heights that urban districts across America are not there yet. This plan and the thinking that's gone into this is based on some of our best benchmarking. We've looked at the best that other systems are doing, that some of the best schools are doing. What are the best practices? Anyone coming in here who's worth their salt is going to look at this and say, yeah, these make good sense. And I hope he or she does do that. That is my presentation to you on our strategic framework. And I thank you, and I thank all of the participants who were part of that, the development of that framework. And our work is not done yet, but I appreciate your work.
Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
I'll give you an opportunity to come back. We realize that this is a lengthy report. It is not intended for us to get all the answers to our questions tonight. We would have ample time to discuss the report in its parts and also relate that report to the upcoming budget. I will give you an opportunity, however, to ask one question that is burning and cannot wait if you have any such question so that we can get through this portion of the meeting as expeditiously as possible. And we'll start those questioning with Commissioner Thompson.
I have a number of comments and a few questions, so I'm going to have to flip through and see which is the burning one. Pardon? Sure. You can go ahead and move down the line until...
Commissioner Power.
I thought I heard you say that you'll be presenting our budget priorities. Will it go first to the Finance Committee in January or directly here to the full board?
The budget priorities are going to the Finance Committee as scheduled.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, are you ready?
If I must narrow it down to one, on page 22, when we talk about revising the existing accountability system and the second bullet, implementing program evaluation and planning functions, one thing I would be looking for is evidence that, because I know that we're kind of talking about the individual student, the school. In addition, I would want evidence that teacher and administrator effectiveness and areas of need are being regularly assessed and addressed, and that it's beyond the self-assessment that I know occurs. And I also know that we have supervisor assessment. But I would really want some evidence that that's happening regularly and in an effective way so that those individuals too, teachers and administrators in addition to students, are receiving the guidance and support they need.
Very good. Okay.
Commissioner Evans.
The only thing I would add is that I think that it's important that we definitely align the strategic plan with the budget, and that we all understand that in the end it's the board that has to live with the plan. So it's important that we synthesize it over the next month or so and really come back with feedback that will allow us to align it with the budget priorities.
Commissioner Henley.
As you know, the Blue Ribbon Panel called for over 10,000 mentors for students well over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. In one of the, on the strategic framework, one of the bullets was to increase the number of students who have a mentor. Do you know, close ballpark figure, how many students we have with mentors at this time?
Right now, I believe we have 1,100 students, grades 7 through 12, who have advocates through the Hillside Work Scholarship Program. I believe I would have to, Barbara, do you have any data on the number of mentors provided by Big Brothers, Big Sisters? We can provide that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Jana, did you have?
I think the point there is that some of these we haven't tracked annually yet, and so we have to get the baseline data in order to be able to gauge whether or not we're increasing or decreasing.
Okay.
Commissioner Elliott.
I have a statement that I'd like to make. I think that as we develop our strategic framework, that we need to look at our organization, we need to invert our organization, meaning that our students, our parents, our workforce, our employers need to be at the top. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that our education policies are driven by the needs of our community, our workforce, and our students, and our parents. Having said that, we know that based on our demographics, that we have to look at the way we teach an African-American population, a Hispanic population. We have to look at how we define culture, or have we defined culture as the board means it to be defined? And is the definition of culture pervasive throughout our school system? At this point, it is not. But I submit to you that that's what we need to do so that everybody within our district understands what we mean when we say culture and culturally responsive, that it just cannot be in this document. In our hiring process, we have to make sure that when we are recruiting, that they understand what we mean when we say culture, and can they teach to the culture. If they cannot teach to the culture, they're not the people that we need in the district. We use the term qualified teachers, and I have a problem with that because that term becomes political. Many of us know that when the term qualified is placed there, that means that, somehow black folk are considered unqualified, when history has shown we've always had to be twice as qualified. So I have a problem with that in that respect. But I also I would like to ask my board members to consider, when we talk about highly qualified, really what do we mean? We can't only just mean that they are certified. It has to take in some other kinds of characteristics and values that we include as this district in the term qualified teachers, in addition to the credentialing. We have to look at how do we standardize those things in our schools, in some of those schools that are working very well. How do we standardize in all of the schools what's happening at, for example, Wilson in the IB program, or at the School of the Arts, or at some of the other schools, School 20, those schools that are performing very well? How do we standardize those in all of our schools in our district? There should not be one school that is better than the other. I put that on the table because I know we've got this whole concept of school-based planning. Somehow we have to partner with the unions to say, we've got to look at how do you continue to be an individual school, but that there are certain characteristics that can go across all of the schools that will make all of our schools excellent. I think we have to partner with our unions in reference to that. They have to be real partners. They can't drive this. We all have to drive it. We can't be afraid of the unions. And it just seems to me that we're afraid of unions. We can't be afraid of unions. Our children are at stake. And lastly, I will say, we have to remove this arrogance. There's this arrogance in this district that people who have degrees, or people who have the educational background, that they know it all. And we've got to get rid of that if we're really going to work to meet the needs of our children. I believe we can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Point of clarification.
Point of clarification, Commissioner Thompson.
With all due respect to my colleague, Commissioner Elliott, I think all the points you make are very valid. However, Commissioner Garcia. If I enveloped all of my comments into a statement, I could have covered more ground. I'm trying to stick to what you have requested. Question, one comment. When you come back around and,
I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Thompson. Most of us has respected that, and I would ask Commissioner Elliott to also respect our ground rules so that we can get through the meeting expeditiously. But I will come back to you and allow you one further comment
that's okay, I'll put mine in writing.
after Commissioner Brennan's statement. Commissioner Brennan?
Just one quick question. At the legislative event that we had on December 5th, some of you who were there may recall that it was suggested that as part of a statewide solution to the CFE rulings, that there could be, and Dr. Rivera, you could speak to this as well, given your involvement with the transition team for the new governor, that there was the prospect of tying both the statewide solution and compensation aid to the district to performance along the lines of a kind of No Child Left Behind almost sort of outline. Do you have any knowledge of that? Could you speak to that at all? What might we anticipate?
I believe on January 3rd, when the governor releases his State of the State message, this is something that he has spoken about publicly, and I think he'll outline some more specific. I'm not sure exactly how you frame it, whether they're recommendations or a particular position on it, but I'm certain that the governor will speak to the issue of accountability and its relationship to CFE, if not on the 3rd, then at some point, certain, of course, when he releases his budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Thompson, I'll give you an opportunity based on the fact that Commissioner Elliott was rather lengthy. So go ahead.
No, I'm serious. I do have a number of comments and questions, and I'm satisfied to put them in writing and present them to the
I
administration.
appreciate that. Thank you very much. Commissioner Power, do you know? Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Rivera, for your report and your responses. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which would be committee reports. And we will start with Commissioner Thompson. Does the student representative have a report tonight?
Yes, we do.
Yes, I will start with you, Mr. Evans.
On December 20th, the Student Leadership Congress held our monthly meeting. At this meeting, we had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Kevin Duran from Channel 8 News. Mr. Duran offered us advice for our upcoming public service announcements. The focus of these PSAs will be bullying, which is a problem all children have dealt with at one time or another throughout the district. We decided on 5 key messages we would like to show our target audiences. At a follow-up meeting on December 20th, we outlined possible scripts for our public service announcements. Also on November 30th, we furthered our progress with our partnership with 6th graders at 22 School by going to 22 School during the school day and meeting with our students so that we can get to know them and they can get to know us better one-on-one. We will hold our next meeting January 17th at 5 p.m. here at Central Office. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
The Quality Assurance Committee held its regular monthly meeting on December 11th. We briefly discussed an information request from October regarding the status of gay-straight alliance groups in our secondary schools. Specifically, we have asked the administration to report on the challenges faced by these organizations and what resources are provided to them. We also discussed the status of the Human Resources Culture Change Report approved by the full board on the recommendation of QA in December of '05. A copy of what we have received to date is in your Friday packet. The committee spent most of our December meeting discussing the Project 2006 update provided by Research, Evaluation, and Testing. Project 2006 is a group of 9th graders that have been followed exclusively from 9th grade to 12th grade. The study is going to conclude in August of 2007 to allow time to include the number of students taking 5 years to meet graduation requirements. Excuse me. As of this past June 2006, of the original group of 2,594 students, 860 have graduated, 497 were still attending Rochester City Schools. 322 had transferred out. 501 had dropped out. 58 were expelled. 312 entered GED programs. 8 were incarcerated. 1 was deceased. 14 left the United States. 5 were attending reform school. 3 were attending an out-of-state facility. 12 were in a youth home, and 1 was being homeschooled. QA also met on November 20th and 29th to discuss the restructuring reports of Charlotte, East, Douglas, School 9, Monroe, Jefferson, and Marshall. We greatly appreciated the time the building principals provided to ensure that we have a thorough understanding of the reports and the challenges they face in meeting New York State and No Child Left Behind requirements. QA learned, for instance, that the difference between meeting the requirements and not meeting them can come down to 1 student who doesn't attend school on a test day. In closing, we learned that one other huge challenge is getting the data from New York State on the previous year's testing, something that the superintendent mentioned in his presentation. Getting that in time to impact the current school year instruction. There may be steps the board can take at the federal and state oversight levels to help address these situations, and I believe this is an issue QA will be following up on in 2007. QA is expected to convene in January following the board's organizational meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, December 12th, reviewed the November financial reports, and we have those for you today. I would seek a motion to accept those financial reports.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Well, actually, you will move
moved
in,
it, so-
and you will second it. It's been moved and second to accept the financial reports. Any questions? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? None.
Thank you. We also received a review of the P-card system and reviewed several resolutions, including resolutions 408 through 411, resolutions 414 through 416, and resolutions 228 through 432. These were all reviewed by the Finance Committee, received reports from staff and justification for them. 3 of them are budget amendments,
Could you give me the last resolutions?
428 through 432.
Okay.
Now, there are 3 resolutions in our packet that should have been pulled. They were not considered by the Finance Committee and should not have been included, but through just oversight managed to get into the packet. Those include resolutions 412, 413, and 434. I move that those resolutions be withdrawn.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Could you repeat those numbers again, please?
Resolutions 412, 413, and 434. They were not considered in the Finance Committee agenda. They were actually put off until January Finance Committee meeting, and there was not an intent to forward them to the board. Okay. That does conclude my report, except to say that with regard to the P-card program, we have asked Gary Smith, who is the Director of Procurement and Supply, to provide us with a set of written protocols that will address how issues are handled when and if employees misuse the P-card that they've been given for official school district business. We hope to hold 2 meetings of the Finance Committee in January. The first, very soon after our organizational meeting, for the purpose of reviewing the facilities modernization plan and to tour the war room, as they call it, over at Josh Lofton, and to and then the second to take care of our regular monthly report business. but dates to be set after the organizational meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans?
I have a couple of brief reports. The Community Intergovernmental Relations Committee met for our annual legislative event December 5th at School 12. Let me thank staff, Linda Dunsmore, for helping to put that together. She did a great job. And also the principal of school number 12 and the librarian for allowing us to use the building. It was a very instructive conversation with our legislators, and we look forward to following up with them when they're back in session in January. Also, to Commissioner Thompson made a point of mentioning the No Child Left Behind Act. I will be in Washington representing the board for the National School Boards Association's Federal Relations Network, and that meeting exclusively is for the purposes of speaking with members in the Congress to discuss the reauthorization of the No Child Left Behind Act, which Dr. Rivera mentioned earlier, will be up for discussion this coming spring. That concludes my report on the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. It will meet once again after the organizational meeting, after the January 2nd organizational meeting. I also have a report from the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee met on Wednesday, December 13th in an open session to review the comprehensive annual financial report and an executive session to discuss the claims audit function. The committee is seeking support from the board for the following. The committee seeks a motion to accept the risk assessment and audit plan for 2006-2007. Number two, the committee seeks a motion to accept an adoption of the CAFR, which is resolution number 417, which is based on the unqualified opinion from the independent auditor's report. Number three, the committee recommends the hiring of 2 claims auditors. This recommendation will bring the board into full compliance with the New York State Comptroller's 5-point plan for legislation. As everyone knows, since last December, we have had numerous discussions regarding the claims audit function and how we should go about following with that. I did send a memo to the board in the Friday packet detailing the request to fulfill the obligations of the Comptroller's 5-point legislation and the claims auditor function. The next meeting will be scheduled at a later date, obviously after the board reorganizes January 2nd.
There are resolutions for those items you mentioned?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
A question, President Garcia?
Questions, Commissioner Elliott?
In reference to your visit to Washington, Commissioner Evans, what are you planning to present in reference to the No Child Left Behind on behalf of the school district?
I'm going there as a representative of the school district to the National School Boards Association, so I will be there with the group from the National School Boards Association.
Okay,
I will talk about how the No Child Left Behind has affected Rochester, but the main purpose of that is to hear what Congress plans for the No Child Left Behind Act, what their thinking is, and report back on that.
Okay, do we have any idea about that at this point? What Congress is it, or is it too early to?
I think it's too early.
Speculate on what
but I think
positions?
because it is now a Democratic control in the House and Senate, that there's definitely going to be some changes there. It'd be very instructive and interesting to hear, particularly from the chair of the Education Committee in the House and also the chair from the Education Committee in the Senate, what their thinking is around changes to No Child Left Behind and how it will end up affecting the district. So I think it would be instructive, and I'm really anxious to hear about what their thinking is behind that. And I know that in your committee with Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Brennan, you guys have that discussions frequently about No Child Left Behind. So
well, also about us being good advocates.
Right.
You know, here's an opportunity now
Exactly.
for us to change the laws,
Right.
and so I'm really anxious to know what
Exactly.
our position is going to be, how we're going to
Exactly.
influence
Exactly. And
that
also,
policymaking.
And also, I would urge everyone to go to the National School Boards, even the folks in the audience, to go to the National School Boards Association's website, nsba.org, because it also lays out their strategy and thinking on what they perceive may be happening and things that they think affects urban districts the most, and what we could be doing to advocate on behalf of possible changes.
And one last question. Is there the conversation around getting rid of the test? Any conversation around that?
You know, I haven't heard any particular conversations around getting rid of the test, but I know a lot of conversations center around other assessments, alternatives to assessments, including the test. So it'll be interesting.
Dr. Rivera.
Just a quick comment. 2 months ago, I attended the Council of Great City Schools. Rochester is a member of that organization. And Mike Cashley, who's the executive director, they prepared a testimony outlining the council's position that was given to the Secretary of Education. We have copies of that downstairs. We'd be happy to put that in your board packet tomorrow. It's a little more up-to-date, if you will, even though it's 2 months old. Information on all the cities who have combined and shared ideas and recommendations to them. It's kind of a representative picture of the kind of changes we'd like to see.
President Garcia?
Yes.
So, Commissioner Evans, there will or there will not be an opportunity for the various school board representatives to present information, recommendations, insights. It's mainly a listening.
Right, and I'll have to double check to see what opportunities they afford us to participate in those sessions. I know some of those sessions will be group sessions with representatives from a lot of the other districts, but I'm pretty sure that on the last day we will be meeting with our representatives in Washington. I have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, it usually is that way. But I'll have a further update, obviously in January, and then again after January 23rd when it happens. One last report: the Superintendent Search Committee met on Monday, December 6th, to review and discuss components of the public information plan, including surveys, community forums, and community stakeholders. To date, the committee has circulated approximately 16,000 surveys throughout the community to parents, district employees, and city residents. Placed the survey online, obviously, at rcsdk12.org. I would urge members of the public to go on the website and take the survey if you have the opportunity. And anyone that received the survey via mail, please, 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 please complete it and send it back in the self-addressed stamped envelope. Also, as you know, we have scheduled 2 community forums for the month of January. The first one on the east side of the city, Wednesday, January 3rd from 6 to 8, and also at Wilson Foundation Academy, Thursday, January 11th, 6 to 8, and there also will be additional forums in February. Both the surveys and the community forums are designed, as was mentioned earlier, to solicit community input for the superintendent search process, and the next meeting is immediately following tonight's business meeting. I want to thank my colleagues on the committee, Commissioner Elliott, Commissioner Brennan, for all their hard work, and also, again, the staff support that has been helping drive this effort forward. And that concludes my reports for tonight.
Commissioner Hanley.
Thank you, President Garcia. Governance Committee met on Tuesday, November 28th, to discuss the proposed Personnel Committee and the Board Self-Evaluation Tool. The committee also finalized and distributed the 2006 and 2007 Board of Education Self-Evaluation Tool. The purpose of the tool is to provide board members with information about their performance and identify areas which require improvement or enhancement to strengthen the board and its operations. The tool was distributed last Friday, December 15th, and is due back to the clerk tonight for compilation. The committee also discussed the need for the board to seek representation on local and national organizations that focus on local, state, and federal legislation and regulation. The committee agreed that the board should seek membership with other organizations and take advantages of serving on committees of organizations such as Monroe County School Boards Association that educate members on legislative labor relation, reform, technology, and other education issues. This speaks a little bit to what Commissioner Elliott was just asking: how do we influence these new changes coming up in legislation by putting more of us on these committees, both on the state, local, and national organizations that we already belong to. We can influence this this up-and-coming, hopefully exciting changes to No Child Left Behind. So whoever gets the committee chairmanship next, be looking for the board staff to be submitting a list of current member organizations and standing committees, and the board members that serve as liaisons to them at the next committee meeting. Finally, Commissioner Elliott presented mission and vision statements detailing the proposed Personnel Committee at the October committee meeting. The Personnel Committee would serve as a formal entity for considering the district personnel issues and policies. The committee recommended that the discussion of the Personnel Committee be referred to the Policy Committee for further action. So I will move that we vote to move the discussion of this Personnel Committee to the Policy Committee.
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Henley, second by Commissioner Evans. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It goes to the Policy Committee.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
Does anyone, last year I served, it was a lot of work, as co-chair of the Labor Relations Committee for the Monroe County School Boards Association. Is anyone here, is anyone from the board now representing? So I kind of.
From what I've seen, I believe we have Commissioner Brennan is on which
Legislation.
one? Legislation.
Okay.
And Commissioner Powell, are you on one this time? No. No, I think we only have one or two committees we actually have anybody on. We don't have anybody on labor, I know that.
Okay.
So that's something I definitely think we should be looking at, I guess, for quote-unquote stacking the deck on these committees and getting more of our influence in there.
Yeah,
Anyone who wants to volunteer, they're
Right.
looking for volunteers right now.
Yeah, and I would say labor, anyone that wants to serve on the labor relations, that was a very instructive committee, so I would urge any board member that's interested in that. I enjoyed co-chairing it for that year.
Good.
Commissioner Brennan?
I finally have something to report, at long last. The Policy Committee met on December 18th. Can everybody hear me, first of all? Sometimes I'm not sure whether the microphone's picking up.
I hear you fine.
I mumble. At the request of President Garcia, at the November 16th business meeting, the committee discussed the financial report and resolution policy number 6630 to address Commissioner Elliott's concern regarding the receipt of monthly financial reports. Administration explained that the monthly reports have been provided to the board for every month except July and August, and cumulative financial information for the summer months is presented in September financial reports. The committee agreed to discharge the item until further concerns were raised, so that may come up again. The administration presented data also detailing the implementation of the parent preference managed choice policy, number 5135, which governs student assignment and school improvement policy. The policy the committee will continue discussions of this policy at subsequent meetings. The committee also approved and sent to the full board for discussion a proposed change in our athletic eligibility policy. This isn't, the report is not the time to discuss the merits.
It's the first time it's coming to the board, is that
Right.
correct?
Yes,
Then
and
it's coming as an informational item.
right. And what I wanted to, precisely, and what I wanted to say was that I appreciate everybody's patience with the delay that's attended this. I appreciate the input and the assistance from both the community and the administration. We saw a couple of fine examples tonight, the speakers we had, some thoughtful discussion of this complicated and difficult issue, and I wanted to express appreciation for that as well. Ultimately, the board has to establish policy. Extensive discussions over many months have resolved a lot of differences, and that's good. So the committee also sent along, as background information, administration suggestions regarding the proposed policy change. They're indicated in green in the copy that you have. Further common ground can be found. There's an amendment process that can be observed, and I look forward to a good discussion. Now, it's informal discussions leave me unsure how prepared the full board is to discuss this or act tonight. If you want to do it, if you want to pursue this tonight, that's fine. I've committed some thoughts to writing. If that's not the case, I want you to be comfortable and take all the time you need to make the best decision you can, obviously. And
Well,
I know you'll make a thoughtful decision. I look forward to discussion.
I heard a little mumble of disaccord from my right, so I'm going to ask Commissioner Powell if she disagree with my ruling.
Commissioner Brennan sent out a written report that went to all board members. That constitutes the information item. So it would appear, it would probably ought to be discussed under new business
I agree.
as a discussion item.
I agree with you as a discussion item. He did send it, did receive it.
Okay.
So it's a discussion item. Is there a specific recommendation that you're making? Which of
Yes. Yeah, we recommended very clearly that the proposed policy,
The original proposed policy.
and I believe that you have copies of the proposed policy as well as the administration's suggestions, both. We recommended the proposed policy and sent along administration reservations as well, so we could discuss them. Because we thought they certainly, there is some disagreement. At the end of the day, the board establishes policy, but we're certainly interested in what administration thinks. And if
Fine.
you want to discuss it tonight, that's fine.
We'll discuss it tonight. In fact, it's open for discussion right now, then I'll start on my
President Garcia?
right. I'll start on my right with Commissioner Thompson.
Are we doing it under new business?
Yeah, I wanted to,
Oh, that's
Under new
right,
business.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Do it under
We'll do it on the new business.
and I had a question about the other, a previous topic that he reported on.
No,
if
we'll
that's
we'll do it on the new business. We'll do the,
All of it?
and you can.
All
have-
of his report is done under new business?
My reports concluded that the eligibility policy would be under
I
new
had a
business.
question about
About which report?
his report, about the
Previous item?
the
Okay.
previous item that he had reported on in reference to the monthly, the financial report.
Yeah, go ahead and ask him a question.
Commissioner Brennan, you had indicated that that had been discharged. Can you tell me what discharge means?
I think that we're just waiting. Actually, we had thought that you might be at the meeting. I
Yeah,
think that
I
was
was
the
thinking-
intent.
okay.
And so what we'd like to do is, at
Okay,
some
I'll come to-
opportunity that you'd like to revisit it, we'd be happy to do that.
But I think that we got a recommendation from our auditors that going forward, and I could be wrong, that from now on, we would get reports every month. So,
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if you
mean,
remember that, yeah.
Okay, the policy indicates that, and there's a concern in the community about the finances of this district, and if the policy says monthly, then I think we should be receiving those reports on a monthly basis.
Fine, well, this concludes the report. Then we'll move on and we'll discuss Commissioner Brennan's athletic policy under new business. So we'll go on with the agenda. We're going to do resolutions now.
I have a question about that, President Garcia,
About what?
the resolutions.
I haven't said anything about resolutions yet.
I know, but this is appropriate if you don't mind. Commissioner Powell had mentioned that there were 3 that were being pulled. Does that mean that those numbers are shifted? I just want to get
No,
clarification.
it just means
When I get to them, I'll
okay.
mention which one
My
those are.
apologies.
We're going to do resolutions 377 and 378. I'll entertain a motion to approve those 2 resolutions, please.
So moved.
It's been moved, then is there a second? Second. There's a second. It's been moved and second. All those in favor of resolution 377 and 378, please say aye.
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 No on 378?
And no on 378. The ayes have it. I'd like to give Dr. Rivera an opportunity to make some recognitions, please.
Sure, I would just like to recognize these 2 administrative appointments that we made here tonight in key positions. One is the new Director of Program Development for the district, and I'd like to ask Lourdes Odell. Lourdes, are you here? Congratulations, Lourdes. And your family is here with you? Great, there's your support team. Thank you. And second, the new principal at the School of Applied Technology at Edison, they went through a major process and identified 2 candidates, and Matt Laniak was one who emerged, and we're proud to have him back in the system. Matt Laniak, congratulations. And your family is here with you? Good. Okay, great. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 379 to 407.
So moved.
It's been moved, and is there a second? No second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and second. 379 to 407. All of those in favor of approving resolutions 379 to 407, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Yeah, I have some.
Go ahead, Commissioner Elliott.
390, 391, 392. Um, 393, 394, 395, 396, 397. I have some questions on 398, President Garcia.
You're voting no on
Yes, I am
three-
voting no.
You're voting no on all of those.
Yes.
What's your question on 398?
Actually, I'll submit this in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it, Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you. So the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 408 to 411.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. All of those in favor of approving those resolutions, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
President Garcia, we have our student,
Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Evans, you have to speak up if I miss you.
Okay.
How do you vote on the first set of resolutions?
Aye.
In this set of resolutions?
I don't want the first side.
408 to 411.
Aye.
Thank you.
I have a question, 411.
Did we vote on this, yes? No? Okay. You have a question, 411, go ahead.
Right, this is a deduction, and I guess I've never really paid attention that we've have to approve for a deduction of 11,000. Can you explain that?
The resolutions we're now voting on went through the Finance Committee. These are resolutions for final payment. You'll find the actual final payment amount in the resolved above the bolded section. What's bold, original contract plus or minus, is only there for information purposes. Generally, it's there to show you that we're staying within 10%.
Plus or minus?
Okay, so
So does that mean we didn't need, that the job was 11,000 less?
in that instance, the contractor deducted damages that he performed. Those damages were paid for or were repaired by a different contract. You would find a different contract that essentially costs as much as that deduction. It's not necessarily in this packet. That actually hasn't come up for final payment yet. So, but these all went through the Finance Committee.
All of those approving 408 to 411, please say aye.
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 Opposed? We'll skip in resolution 412 and 413 because they have been pulled. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 414 through 416.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a question.
It's been moved and second. You have a question, Commissioner Elliott?
I guess I just don't understand what's being done with these resolutions. So before I vote on them, I would like to know exactly what's happening here. And this probably is because this is not my level of expertise. So if somebody can explain to me exactly what we're doing, I'd appreciate that.
Well, you know, we're not going to take the time to do that now, Commissioner Elliott, because as I stated time and time again at these meetings, we give the board ample opportunity to ask those questions prior to arriving at this meeting. And if you didn't ask it, then you didn't want to know. So I'm going to...
That doesn't mean I didn't want to know, President Garcia.
I'm going to ask for a vote. All of those in favor of accepting resolutions 414 through 416, please say aye.
Aye.
Student representative votes on this one?
Aye.
Thank you. Oppose?
I oppose. Let me, and point of clarification,
Point of clarification.
when we get these on Friday, for someone like me who's just started out compared to others who've been here for 4 years, we don't have all of the answers and can't get all the answers within from a Friday, which the office is closed until Monday. We get the packets on a Friday night, to a Thursday to get the information, to get the answers that we want to the questions. This becomes an opportunity here at these meetings to get those questions answered in a public forum, so that not only I understand it, but
I'm
the
sorry.
people, so that the people in the community understand what's
I'm
going on
sorry,
as well.
Commissioner Elliott.
It appears to me
Commissioner
that with
Elliott,
us
you're
not
out of
wanting
order.
to get these questions answered, that it almost makes me suspicious of us as a
Commissioner Elliott,
board.
you're out of order. However, let me respond to that. Everyone gets the package on a Friday.
We understand that everybody gets it on a Friday at 5 o'clock. Some of us who are new
all of us.
and want
those-
to understand,
those
so
who
we
are
can do
new,
our due diligence
Please
on
let
behalf
me
of the board.
continue, Commissioner Elliott. All of those, including those who have been on the board a long time or a short time,
Your learning curve may be, your way of learning may be one way,
Commissioner Elliott,
President
please
Garcia.
let me
But some of
finish.
us who wants to do our due diligence
Commissioner
wants to
Elliott.
have the information done, answered correctly. We don't want to vote on this stuff if we don't understand it.
Commissioner Elliott,
Might I just state one thing?
Commissioner Powell.
These three resolutions have to do with budget amendments that were covered in the Finance Committee. Finance Committee is open to any board member, and I will reiterate.
I'm not on that committee, and I don't always get a chance to go,
Once again, that
Commissioner
you
Powell.
are welcome.
I don't
to
always get a
come.
chance to attend those meetings. That's why I feel that I have an opportunity and a right to ask those questions here.
Well, I have
And
this-
will ask those questions
I have
here.
decided that you don't, and that's it. We have already voted on those, and they have passed. Resolution 417 has been pulled. I'll entertain a motion to approve
Wait, 417? No.
No, that's-
417?
That's
No, that's
Oh, no?
the CAFR. We want that one.
You want that resolution?
Oh, we want Resolution 417, fine, let me just make a note. My mistake.
You're freaking out.
I'll entertain a motion to approve resolutions
417, but
417 through 425.
second.
It's been moved and second. All of those in favor of approving resolutions 417 through 425, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So you're saying no questions can be asked at this point?
If you have a questions, I'll accept it. Opposed? None? We'll move on.
Student vote?
Well, hold on just a minute.
Student vote.
Student, please, what's your vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Which ones did you ask for a vote for, President Garcia?
417 through 425, the vote is done already.
You don't have my vote.
Well, then you voted no. On resolution 426, the reason that
Shirley missed the vote.
I'm sorry, Shelley.
I'm sorry, I had to step away from the dais.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let's take the vote again. Resolution 417 through 425, and what is your vote, Commissioner Thompson?
I vote aye.
Okay, and you vote aye, Commissioner?
Yes.
Everybody else voted aye except for Commissioner Elliott, is that correct? That's correct, then. On Resolution 426, the reason that I stopped there is because I have a question on 426, Dr. Rivera. And I remember this contract coming up to the board last year, and I think it was in the amount of $400,000, if I remember correctly. Might have been 4, it might have been 2, but I know it was a large
It
amount.
was 200,000.
200,000, according to Commissioner Elliott. But I know that our facilities modernization planning kind of stopped dead after the legislation did not go through the legislature. So I'd like to know what was done and why are we coming up with this resolution again?
Certainly. I'm going to ask.
May I interject for one moment? I just need to make note of the fact that you're raising a question, even though we had the opportunity, as you just pointed out, to raise this question after we received this packet on Friday.
Yes, Commissioner Elliott, but Commissioner Thompson, but I'll tell you, I was out of the country all last week. Yeah, I was out of the country all last week, and I did ask this question. I did brought this question up before the board meeting to the superintendent, but he was unable to provide me with an answer prior to this meeting, but he told me just this evening that he has an answer now.
Okay, I just wanted to note the apparent inconsistency in how we're applying.
Right, but I did ask the question prior to the meeting, and no answer I was not able to get an answer until now.
Yes, there was an original contract for $200,000, and work has been performed. I'd like Rick Hannon to just outline the work that has been performed in this effort, because there was a great deal that went into the development of that plan, and this particular contract continues more work that needs to be done into the future. Mr. Hannon?
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. The original contract was for $200,000, as was stated. To date, we have dispersed $131,648 against that contract. The resolution before you is for a continuation for work that would be done. What has been done to date essentially has been an analysis of the local I'm going to say labor market, but if I can continue, it's more a matter of what firms are available to do work, firms that are either minority or women-owned businesses that could serve the facilities modernization program. What is to come, if this contract is authorized, would be work in helping the district to ensure that whatever goals are established that would flow from that initial analysis, that we are able to meet those goals. So it would be a question of partnering with appropriate organizations. It would be a question of RMBDC providing technical assistance to firms to ensure that they are certified and to make sure that they are aware of and participating in the facilities modernization program. And if I could just add one other comment, President Garcia, while our legislation did not pass this last session, work did not stop. A number of things went forward. RMBDC certainly continued to work, and planning in a variety of other areas continued as well. And from the legislative event that was held earlier in December, I think we received some optimistic signs that the legislature is prepared to accept and act upon a recommendation from the district to authorize the facilities modernization program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannon.
I'll entertain a motion to approve resolutions 426 through 448.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been moved and second. 426 through 448. Any questions?
Yes, President DeMar.
Commissioner Powell.
I just need to follow up on the question you asked on Resolution 426. This is not an extension of the contract. This is a different contract with different parameters. And was the scope of the previous contract scaled down or in any other way modified, or will we ultimately pay out the whole $200,000 for that contract?
We have not received the final billing. There may be a billing in addition to the $131,000 that I mentioned. Whether it will hit $200,000, I'm not entirely sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Elliott.
433. I guess I don't understand why we have a resolution if there is going to be no additional cost to the district, according to the resolution. Could that be explained to me, please?
I believe this also came through the Finance Committee. This is an extension of the duration of the contract, not a change to the dollar amount. But because the contract changed, the resolution is before us.
In that group of 426 through 448, we had agreed to pull resolution 434, so please cross it out. So 426 through 448, excluding 434, please. If there are no other questions, then I'll entertain a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Student representative?
Aye.
Thank you.
I have noes to 428, 429, 430, 431, 432.
President Garcia?
Yes, Commissioner Powell.
I would like to call particular attention to resolutions 435 through 446, as they are all donations to the district. In particular, a very sizable contribution from an individual for the mural restoration project at Wilson. As we know, one of the murals taken out of the old building was is mounted on the Wilson I'm sorry, I'm confusing it with the Madison, but in any event, I want to call attention to Ellen Miller, who gave a sizable contribution for the restoration project, and give a heartfelt thanks.
Much appreciated. That concludes the resolutions. There's no
Did we
unfinished.
vote on it?
Yes, we voted already.
You voted no on several. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on then to the new business discussion of the athletic policy. And we'll start with Commissioner Thompson.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Garcia, would you repeat?
We're now in the discussion of the athletic policy submitted by Commissioner Brennan for consideration on the new
President
business.
Garcia, just a point of clarification.
Point of clarification has.
It's not my policy, it's the policy committee's proposal. And I just want to be clear that everybody understands that there's a proposed policy which passed the committee. There is a proposed amended policy which contains administration suggestions, and there is the existing policy. Did you all receive a copy of this?
Did all the policies,
So we're clear about what we're discussing and what we're voting on.
are all the policies being submitted by the policy committee, Commissioner Brennan?
The only policy that has been approved by the policy committee is that which is labeled proposed policy.
So why are the other ones up for discussion? That's
We
the
said
only
what we
one, the only one we
specific-
would,
the
the only one
specific
we will
language
be,
of the motion.
the only one we will be discussing, Commissioner Brennan, is the policy advanced by the committee.
We advanced specifically in the language of the motion at the committee, the administration's suggestions for background information purposes, just so people here know that. If you want to discuss that, you're free to. If you don't, I would suggest that we do, in fairness. But the policy was approved, the proposed policy was approved, not the one labeled administration suggestions. That's the one that was approved, and it's the only one that was approved by the committee.
Well, let me perhaps begin the discussion. Excuse me, Commissioner Thompson, I'm going to pull your turn and allow the superintendent to give some suggestions for changes in this policy.
There was a policy committee meeting which I attended, and representatives of my staff were there as well. And I'll just share with you some of the concerns that we had expressed at that same meeting. One of the concerns centered around the grade point average of 2.0. I think there's general agreement that 2.0, a GPA of 2.0 cumulatively makes good sense. However, it becomes problematic when you can maintain a GPA of 2.0 but actually be failing a core subject that's required for graduation. So it is possible that we could have students who have maintained a GPA of 2.0 who may not graduate. And it was my belief that we needed to look very carefully at the core subjects and not lessen the standard for graduation, but insist that we have passing grades for our students in core subject as well. So the current policy as proposed has a cumulative GPA, but just keep in mind that that policy, if it's passed by the board, we could find ourselves in a situation where students could have a GPA of 2.0 who will not be able to graduate because they failed one or more core courses. That's number one. Number two, the requirements for additional assistance, additional academic assistance, I just want you to be aware that that could carry with it some significant financial implications. If we're talking about requiring more tutoring other than what is currently available in schools, of course we are now requiring that students participate in extra programs after school and that students participate in summer programs. So there'd have to be more discussion about the interpretation of that. Are you talking about more than what we're already providing? And if so, that could have implications for cost. A third concern that we had expressed was I don't know if viability is the right word here, but the effectiveness of a runaround sheet. A student who weekly or brings a runaround sheet to a teacher to fill out on Friday, and then again another sheet the following week to track his or her progress. I'm not certain about the effectiveness of that and felt that we could have a more discussion about that. What we did suggest was that there be a 3-week interim report, that there are grades that are administered every 6 weeks, that there be a 3-week report. These are some of the concerns that I had expressed. The policy never does address ineligibility. I mean, there's always, it appears, where a student's always eligible. So these are just some of the issues that we had brought to the policy committee, and I clearly understand the role of the Board of Education as a policy-making body, and clearly it's your right to pass that policy, but I just wanted to share some of the issues and concerns that we had expressed.
Anyone else wants to comment? Commissioner Thompson?
I'd like to know if the policy committee received the administration's recommendations and in ample time to discuss it at the policy committee meeting.
We had a wide range of discussions that led people to various interpretations of what the administration position was over a good many months, and did receive their final position on December 8th, or at least I did, which is 10 days prior to the meeting, and I thought was reasonable. By the way, I would, and I think that the people who support this policy would probably not object to this, the language that the superintendent or that the administration suggests regarding the core subjects would be agreeable to me by way of friendly amendment to change. I think if that would resolve that particular issue,
But it was
we'd be fine with
discussed
that.
at the committee table, and the committee opted to not accept the
committee,
substitution of core for
committee read,
scheduled.
I assume read what was sent to them, and decided that what we want to do is advance this to the full board, because there have been a great deal of delays, and the delays that have been taking place with respect to this issue have been going on for a very long time, and there's been a great deal of interest expressed, and I think Mr. Hendley can speak to this as well, in the community, and we thought that it would be good to just have a good discussion among ourselves, among the full board, and accept those amendments that are part of the administration's suggestion that make sense to us, and come up with the best policy we can.
Any other
Now,
comments?
The board does have the option to recommit it to the committee if it wishes. The board has the option to amend the policy. I think we ought to just discuss the issues on their merits and come to a decision.
Mr. Evans?
I just have one question. Aren't we ourselves doing a disservice to the students that are actually on these teams that have provided a good GPA, have kept up their grades to play on these teams, being that we're going to add these students that have not kept up their grades, and in a sense take these kids off a team that they may actually not make these teams by adding these kids that have not lived up to their responsibilities.
Should I respond to that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Greco, this is not a public discussion. Sorry. Commissioner Brannan?
That's a really, it's a good question. And what we're trying to do is rather than view this as a disservice to those who are on the team, who have kept their grades up, we're trying to engage more frequently those kids who are having difficulties, engage them by adults. In other words, instead of just saying, okay, you're falling behind in your grades, you're off the team, the result of which is, as the Democrat and Chronicle editorial pointed out on September 29th very eloquently, is that those kids basically drop out. And rather than just us as adults saying, okay, you're falling behind, you're ineligible, and just allowing them to drop out, we thought it would be a better idea to engage those students more frequently with a team of adults. That's where the runaround sheet comes from. And allow them to play, but require, on a weekly basis, have people, the adults, compare notes, see that the kids are going to school, going to class, getting the extra help they need, tutoring or whatever else it is, and allowing them to play on a probationary basis and engaging them. And that's really the heart of the issue. Do you just say when you have, and I think that you could sum the issue up that way, do you just say to a student that's having this difficulty, go ahead, drop out, you've fallen behind, you haven't done what you're supposed to, go drop out and go down that road? Or should we as adults make more of an effort to engage those students with the sort of help and tutoring, working with the coach, working with the parents when we can, to keep them on the right road? And that's the intent of the policy.
President Garcia?
Commissioner Elliott.
I do support the policy. Let me just be real frank about that and clear. And I support it because, again, you hear me say, people hear me say this all the time. We cannot continue to educate kids the traditional way. That traditional paradigm is gone. And we need to retain as many kids in school as we can. Now, and we do this at Baton Street, the carrot is the sport, but we get them for education. And whatever we have to do in order to support that, if they're coming in for ball, as we saw these kids tonight, then let's put the support services around them to keep them in school. That's the kind of thinking that we got to have. We can't look and say, well, if these kids are doing it, they're being successful their way. But everybody is not the same. And so how do I am not willing that anybody is lost. I am really, the concept of No Child Left Behind, I'm really support that. So if we got them in for sports, I don't have a problem with spending the money to put the kind of support network around them in order to make sure they graduate. Let me just say this. A coach can get to a kid better than anybody else that I've seen. And so if you have that kind of bond, that kind of fatherhood, father-son bonding, there's some influence there. I would like for us to look at how we can engage all students, 100% graduation rate, as opposed to putting barriers in people's way and to say because I learned this way that everybody else has to learn this way. I don't think that's appropriate for the day in which we live in. So I would ask that my colleagues consider that people learn differently. They don't all learn sitting in the classroom. We know that males learn differently from females. They've got to get that energy out of them, males do. And so let's look at embracing the different modes of learning and teaching. And I do support this whole notion of athletics, because kids, that's what kids do. And the other thing is, we know when we were in school, this whole notion of team spirit and sports. Many of us remember our high school days based on our sports. So I would ask my colleagues to consider supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Commissioner Evans.
First off, thank you, Commissioner Brennan and the policy committee for all the hard work and energy that you put into this policy. I know that you deliberated on it for quite a long time, and a lot of thought went into it. The one question I have, and I don't know if we have data on this, is how many athletes would actually be affected by this policy. I think one of the things that, one of the misconceptions, and having a lot of friends when I was at Wilson, which really wasn't that long ago, that were athletes, is that the belief that the vast majority of athletes are dumb jocks who really don't excel academically, when I think that it's really the opposite. A lot of the folks that are athletes excel very well in terms of their academics. So will this policy really be that much of a burden in terms of the number of kids that will have to be get the runaround sheets? Is it really going to be that much of a burden I think that in terms of athletics, we have to find a way to keep kids in school, and this could be one way to do that. I will say that I'm lucky in that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, I probably can talk to 100 different people just from the nature of my work and where I am. And I'll tell you that from folks I've talked to, random sampling, haven't talked to the whole city, but a lot of people are supportive of this policy, and if it is able to keep kids from dropping out and making sure that they get the academic intervention that they need. Now, I am definitely not in favor of lowering any standards. So it's important that we strike that balance. I mean, I am against lowering any standards. So if the language, Commissioner Brennan, needs to be tweaked a little bit, and it's friendly to you to put in there that we're not lowering expectations, because I think that
subjects in particular.
for core subjects in particular, because I mean, as a young African American male, I can tell you that sometimes folks try to lower the standards because they don't think that we can excel to the highest level. So I'm not for lowering any standards. So we need to strike that balance, and you can let us know how you think we can do that, and I'll support it.
Vote on this next month.
Right.
You know, we can do this.
But I think that we need to do something, and I think that we don't need to make this more difficult than it is. It's simple. Kids respond to sports. They respond to sports. They're going to do well if they're told that if you do well, you're going to be able to play sports. So let's find a way to strike that balance and make it happen, and not make it more difficult than it is. And also, let's not hold it up for another 6 months to 12 months. Let's get some type of resolution and move on to the other business that we have. We got a budget coming up. We got a facilities modernization. We got a superintendent search. Let's get this finished, and let's move on to the other business that we have. And let's strike that balance. We can do it.
Commissioner Power.
I'll speak as I guess, the minority report out of the committee. I didn't express any opinion, one way or another, really, about this policy. My concern is that the proponents of the policy change hasn't really brought evidence, quantifiable, non-anecdotal evidence of the presence of harm in the existing system. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are examples. The question becomes, how many are there that are being harmed by the system? And I truly appreciate the sentiment that goes with advancing this. It basically is trying to legislate caring and concern. And I submit to you that we cannot, it's not possible to take adults who are in contact with children and legislate care and concern